All right, Mike Ihle is founder and president of Ihle Fabrications, a farmer-built company in central Iowa that has become a leading provider in manufacturing agricultural wear parts for combine harvesters and other farm equipment and some other equipment outside of farm equipment, I think, as well. So you started at Mike in 2002 on your family farm, and Ihle has since grown into a certified Case IH remanufacturing partner, as well as making parts for John Deere, Clace, Drago, and more. And so we're sitting in a facility where you're just finishing up a big addition.
Yeah.
And so definitely a transition to the farm. So Mike, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us the story of the founding of Ihle Fabrications. It's truly from a farm shop to now a manufacturing facility story.
Yeah. So if you right up you can't see out the window here, but if you just look out the window, is our original farm where I grew up. That's where I was born and raised. My brother and I farmed with my father out of there. So that's, we were both into farming, all three of us. And I was farming, I started farming my own ground when I was a senior in high school. And then my brother was 4 years older. And then when he got out of high school, then he joined my dad and I. And so it was a truly, father, son, two sons operation. Fast forward, my dad had gotten sick and passed away in 2012, pretty early age, 67, 68, right in there. So, and this is kind of how this whole Ihle thing started. We were always working on our own machines. If we could fix it in the shop, we would do it. If we had to invent something or make something, or if I could make it, I'd build it. I could probably go to the case dealer and buy the part and have it installed, but you know what fun was that?
So not only cutting out the trip to the shop, paying somebody else to make the repairs, but actually sometimes not even buying the parts, making the parts yourself.
Yeah. If it's something we could make, I'd try to make it first. That's how I was. I mean, we built a lot of our own things for our equipment. Because you take it to a shop. First of all, you can't get it right in when you want it. Something's got to be repaired, so. You call a shop and they might be, okay, we can get it in next week. Well, that's not going to work for me. I need it now. So you get out the welder and the torches and the steel, and you start making whatever you need to make to get the thing going again. Going back to 2013, 2012, after my father had passed away, we had a really terrible wet spring or wet fall, and the combine we had then was just a two-wheel drive combine. So we decided, you know what, we're going to buy a new combine on tracks, four-wheel drive. So we did that. Bought the combine, and with the Case combines we've had, so that was a 9120 model Case IH combine. We had I can't even count how many Case combines before that. Probably every model there was. My dad loved combines. He would trade, run it and trade it, run it and trade it. So we had a lot. But anyhow, the last one that we'd had, in Case has got a big problem with their unload system on their flagship combines on the certain models. And what happens is the vertical unload part of that Case combine wears thin, and it supports the unload auger. So when that wears thin, it takes all the support out of the unload auger. So when you swing your unload auger out, that unload auger eventually will
just tips.
Fall.
Yeah.
It just drops. And the only way the dealers knew of how to fix that was to put a new grain tank in the combine, which was a lot of labor and very expensive. You're talking $25,000, $30,000 to fix it.
So just for those in our audience who may not be familiar with a farm, the combine harvester is going through a field. harvesting corn and soybeans
Yep.
for your fields, wheat in other parts of the country, or rice. But that grain falls into a hopper tank and then eventually goes through an auger where you put it into a truck or grain wagon or something like
Yep,
that.
yep. So it's the
that-
auger that you see swung out that's unloaded into a grain cart going down the field, or a semi on the end or unloading.
So that thing breaking and falling wouldn't.
It causes
it's
a lot
not
of
good
damage.
day. Yeah.
Yep. So we had that happen on a earlier flagship back in 2003 or 4, I think it was. It actually happened to us. The auger had dropped, and we thought there's got to be a way to fix this. I'm not going to spend $30,000 to fix this. We got a farm shop, we got the tools, we can build something. So we came up with this auger liner that actually, you take the elbow off, you slip this liner in, and you weld it in, and it reinforces what had broke, and then you just repair it, and then you just actually fixing it all back up to original again, and then putting everything back together. And it works great. So we did that back in, I'm going to say 2000, somewhere in that 4-3 range. Fast forward to, 2013, 14, somewhere in there, we bought that new combine, and I told my brother, I said, let's not let that happen to this combine. It's a new combine. Let's prevent what's going to happen, because it was the same unload system, everything. They hadn't changed it. So we said, okay, we're gonna do what we did to that other one, and I said the only thing different this time is we're gonna make a template model of this liner kit that we're gonna build for this, because what we did back in 2002 and 3 and 4 is we built the liner, got it in the shop, built it, but we never kept anything. We just built it, fixed it, and then we were done. So
Didn't preserve a pattern or
nope, nothing.
blueprint.
Nope.
Yeah.
So on the new one that we lined, we said, okay, and it took us 2-3 days to actually get it to fit the way we wanted it, to actually have a pattern to where we could copy and make these, make several of them and have them on hand in case anybody ever wanted them, because we're thinking, this is going to happen to somebody else. So we did.
Okay, so you were thinking from the very beginning maybe somebody else would want to have the same thing.
Yep. So fast forward to 2017. Case ice dealer close to me contacted us and said, hey, remember that liner kit that you guys built for your combine? Would you happen to have any record of that or how you built it or anything? Because we have one in the shop here that did the same thing. And it's like, as a matter of fact, we built a couple of these to have on hand. So they
You could make a sale.
we sold it to them, and we thought, you know what, this just might go. So my neighbor is a short line equipment sales, so he's got a booth down at the Iowa Farm Power Show. And so he's got a booth there, it's a table, and he's got some, he sells trailers and stuff like that, And I asked him, I said, hey, do you care if I take up 2 foot of your table to put my display on it? He said, no, come on down. So I went with him. We set up, we got about 3 feet of his table, I put this steel liner up on there, painted all red, and put a sign in front of it, Flagship Combines Vertical Unload Liner. Nobody knew what that thing was.
Yeah, what is that?
So, we had people actually stop by and say, there was a few that had that happen. And, they put a grain tank in. And they're like, really, you guys got something to fix that? I said, yeah. So it just kind of, that one product just kind of rolled. And then we were selling to neighbors and anybody that had a Flagship combine. It was like, yeah, I've heard horror stories about this. I want to get one and put one in.
Yeah.
So we started building it. So, we would build, at that time, I had a couple hired guys, and we would build 5 or 10 kits and just put them in the shop. And in case somebody called, we'd get them. Well, it just kept rolling from there, and dealers would call. And so then we started building 20 of them at a time. And then we started building 25, it just kept going. And then, so that's where it started, is that liner kit, the vertical liner kit.
At what point did you realize that not only could this be something that we build and we sell a few, like there's a lot of people that want to buy this and other things like it? Was it during that time of, when you started to make 20 or 30 at a time, or before that?
Yeah, but I thought, if people are going to buy this to fix their combine, what else would they buy? So then the next product was our bubble up liner. Huge seller. I mean, we've sold thousands of them. And basically what it is your incline auger tube that's in the grain tank of your combine that takes the grain up and dumps it in the grain tank. That tube wears out, just like anything else wears out with grain. Well, that tube is very, very expensive on certain models of combines. I mean, you're talking, $3,000 for that tube. And the labor on a couple of those machines is, to get those in and out, it's a lot of labor. Some are pretty easy, but the flagships are
just hard to work on and takes a lot of time.
Very heavy. You got gearboxes inside you got to take out. But I thought, you know what? And I had already put 2 in our combines. And it was wore out again. And I'm like, I told my brother, Brian, I said, I'm not spending another $4,000. It only lasted 2 years. We can't do it again. The labor. I said, what if we make a tube that'll fit this tube, a liner, that slides in and the bottom fits perfectly. It's all cut out to where the OEM is everything, it's all identical. And then you just slide it in and bolt it in. So we did that. Well, that was the second product. And that went over just huge. So then it just kept expanding into, okay, you make it for this combine. Can you make it for this model? Can you make it for this model? I suppose right now we have, I don't know how many different bubble up liners we have. I'm going to say probably closer to 13 to 15.
Wow.
Different bubble up liners for different machines, different models. So
what were some of the setbacks in those early days of developing your products that you remember? I mean, you mentioned, and it's really understandable, but like we built one just to serve a purpose, and then we thought, well, we didn't save any design or drawings for that, so maybe we should do that so that we can build multiple.
The setbacks were, it was just my brother and I. So we would have to trial and error. You make them, it fits fine in this one, but then you get a dealer that gets it and he calls and says, hey, it doesn't fit in mine. That is the biggest setbacks of any manufacturing, is trying to get the perfect tube or anything perfect. It doesn't matter what part it is. But, I think on that particular one tube, we changed, and I don't know how many times we changed the design of it. It was several. Now we've been using the same design for, oh gosh, probably 4 years. Haven't changed it. But it took many times to change that design, whether it be a 16th bigger or a 16th smaller or, whatever it may be. Those, you don't just build it and send it, and it's a lot different today because we didn't have quality control. I mean, there at the end when we finally moved out of the farm, we were building so much that first of all, the farm shop was full. You couldn't get work on any equipment because it was full of manufacturing, full of inventory. I was essentially quality control, you know, and you can't, that's hard.
Just trying to eyeball it.
Well, that and trying to do everything else too.
Yeah.
So, and that's where everything down here has changed.
But to have a scalable manufacturing business, I suppose perfection, I think you used the word perfect, is probably the standard you have to go for.
Yes.
I did an earlier case study on Henry Ford, and in the early days of the auto business, that was something they struggled with, is that manufacturing processes hadn't been developed so that things like ball bearings were all the same size or all were round. And so that was a really big deal. But that lesson still applies today, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I was dealing with 450 case dealers when I was at the farm.
Okay.
You know, and I was taking all the calls, all the orders, you know, everything. Brian was busy doing the farming because I couldn't do the farming anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was planting corn or combining, I was on the phone more than I was even, thank God for auto steer.
Yeah.
Because nothing would have gotten done, you know.
And so you were taking orders, but probably taking complaints too, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Complaints, compliments, orders, returns. Yeah, it's just, and if you know, the stuff we put out today, you have to be right, you know, because, you know, when I was when we were a 1-person show or 2-person show, dealers kind of, okay, Mike, you know, it's fine. Just send me another one. No big deal. But as you grow, I think they expect more, you know, and I expect more. So quality control, getting that perfect part, you know, the perfect steel we use. It's all has to be, you know,
has to be right
notch.
every time.
Yep.
So I might step back just a little bit. Before we started recording, you were talking about your days in school.
Yeah.
And we were talking about some nephews and nieces that are pretty gifted athletes. And so I commented that athletic skills run through your family. And you said, well, I quit playing sports in the 7th grade because I was working all the time on the farm. That's what you enjoyed. And your junior and senior year, you were done with classes by noon and back working. Not a completely unusual story, but you talk about the way you didn't want to rely on service and repairs the way most people do. You wanted to repair yourself, and even beyond that, wanted to build some of your own parts. And that sort of builder mentality I find really interesting. Do you feel like that was just something that you were born with? Or is that something that you worked on over the course of time? You know, you talk about welding skills and that sort of thing. Where, was shop class a big deal for you back in the day?
I took shop classes. My uncle actually started me welding when I was probably 10. So I'd go out in his shop, and with the old stick welder, he'd give me 20 old field elevator sweeps, and he'd show me how to start welding them together.
Put an edge on those.
Just butt them up to each other and weld them with a stick, and I didn't know what I was doing, but that's first experience. I've always been the type of person that, and I don't know, and I'm way different than a lot of other people. I would rather be the one in the shop that they bring in the broken planter and I fix it instead of out there planting.
Yeah.
It's nice to go out there and get a break and sit in the tractor and plant, but I enjoyed. There's times when you don't enjoy it because you're like, oh my gosh, this thing broke right now. Did it have to break now? I'm right in the middle of planting, but I loved fixing stuff. You got a planter bar that broke in two. Well, hey, you got to go buy a new planter frame. No, I don't. I can take it back to the shop and fix it.
Yeah.
It's things like that.
So I think by its nature, farming is problem solving.
Yeah.
It involves lots of equipment. It involves Mother Nature, which sometimes cooperates, but oftentimes does not.
Right. Yep.
Every year brings something different. I think that probably trains a certain mindset, and maybe you had a lot of that anyway, but you bring kind of that problem solving. As you think about other skills, as you talked about, you were everything for the business at one point, but as you built the company and now have how many employees?
We're pushing 50.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so a lot more.
Yeah.
How did you begin to think about bringing other skill sets on to complement yours?
Well, good question. So when I was at the farm, I had a millwright. A millwright is a welder fabricator. Worked for the local co-op, and he retired from the co-op and looking for part-time work. So I hired him, and he was helping me build tubes. I mean, this guy could do anything, So I hired him, and then, we got busy, and I needed some more people at the farm. So then I had some friends that worked at John Deere as welders. So they would come in on weekends, and they'd get off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So they'd come over to my shop, and they'd help weld. Fast forward to now, now we have engineers. Now we have quality control guys. We have robot welding programmers, robot welding operators, press brake. So the skill set has changed tremendously from what I needed when I was at the farm. Because a lot of the stuff at the farm, when I was having it built, we would do all the welding and everything, but I would farm out the rolling of the tubes and bending, because I didn't have any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We had welders and grinders.
Yep.
And plasma cutters. That was it. So everything that I made at the shop, I had to have farmed out. Had to have it custom bent or custom cut or laser cut or plasma cut, whatever. That all changed in 21 when we moved to the new facility we're in today. Now we do everything in-house. Mm-hmm. So, everything.
Bring in the raw steel.
Raw steel comes in on semis. A lot of the raw steel we get comes from Sweden. Mm-hmm. We use hard ox steel. Mm-hmm. It's used in the mining industries. Just incredible steel. So that's where we differ from any other manufacturer in the combine product line. We're more of a wear parts. Our parts are different than your other distributors that make, replacement OEM. We make it to last 2, 3, 4 times longer.
Just a harder grade of steel.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Takes special machines. The steel, you cannot drill it. It's stuff that has to be laser cut. You got to have huge presses to bend it. You got to have huge rollers to roll it. So that kind of limits, who can do it.
So it begs a question maybe for those who come from outside of the manufacturing business, why wouldn't Case or Deere use that harder steel on their products in the first place?
And I've heard this from engineers, plan to fail. They have to sell parts.
Planned obsolescence.
They have to sell parts. Can you imagine a Case dealership or a John Deere dealership not selling parts? I wonder the same thing. This tube that wears out. It's so easy to fix, but why don't they do it? I don't know. It's a good question.
Well, and I won't try too hard to put ourselves in the shoes of them. One way to look at it is like, well, yeah, it seems kind of nasty. They just want me to buy parts or whatever. But I think part of it, maybe from a more positive perspective, is just they have to consider at what price point they can sell their machines.
Yep, exactly.
And the harder grade of steel up front is going to cost a lot more.
It's going to cost more. Yep.
And unless, and if the average customer doesn't want to pay that, then they just need to get the machines out the door.
Right.
brand
And the
new.
machines are not cheap to start with. So, you're already talking $1 million for a combine or over. Well, if they had to do everything that needed to be done to make that thing what we call our stuff bulletproof, armor-proof, whatever, bulletproof your combine. To do that at a factory level would be, your price would go
up a lot.
So, yeah, it's and they have to sell parts. That's how businesses work.
And so you're in a very established and mature industry, farm equipment, with really big manufacturers in the business like Deere and Case and others. But yet you've found your niche. You're partnering with Case's remanufacturing division, kind of have their seal of approval. How do you think about where Ihle Fabrications fits into this really established industry? Seems like you found a fit, is the good news. But how do you think kind of about the competitive framework of where you fit, who your competition is, where you fit in the industry?
Okay, so we partnered up with, let's kind of start from how it got started. I was doing the Case IH reman transition cone on my own at the farm, and then came down here and I was doing it on my own. I had my own exchange program. Dealers would send me the old cores. I'd rebuild the cone, send them new cones lined with Hardox. So we had that particular cone at the Illinois Farm Show, the Progress Show, and just happened to be so. His name's Nick. Came walking by, and another fella, and they seen this cone sitting there, and they stopped and talked. I wasn't actually there; it was my brother that was doing the show, and he talked to him, and that got them thinking. Hey, what if we would have Ihle make this cone for us, and then we would sell it as a reman. We reman everything else. Why not combine parts? So they got a hold of me. We started talking. Came to a deal. They bought the cone from me. It was a C&H reman cone. So, or C&H Ihle. I guess it's it's C&H reman Ihle is what everything is called.
Co-branded.
But that was the first starter reman, one product. And so C&H owns part of C&H reman. So they're like, okay, let's have another niche. So you can either buy new or you can buy reman, just like a gearbox, alternator. You can buy new or you can buy reman. And they got to thinking, hey, let's try the combine parts. Let's try see if that'll work.
Yeah.
So, and then what's funny is, like, you ask how's it fit, and it's still like, because we're taking a lot of business away from OEM. We really are. But I'm trying to think of that, and it's like, you're taking business away from OEM, but you're giving it back on reman, which they own it. They're together. So what side does it matter where it comes from? So that is where it's kind of confusing. Like, okay, you're going to take my business away, but I'm still getting it on their side. So that cone thing worked out really well. 2 years later, they came back and said, hey, we'd like to have every part that you build. And at that time, we were up to, I don't know, when we left the farm shop, we had 20, 30, 40 parts, and now we're 170, something like that.
Okay.
But they just came in and said, we'd like to have your whole lineup. So anything you build, that is C&H related will fit on a C&H. We don't care if it's a planter, if it's a tractor, if it's a field cultivator. If you can build it, we want it. So really good relationship with Reman.
Oh, good.
So, yeah. But
So I mentioned, Mike, before we started recording, that the series of podcasts I'm doing, our historic case study was the Wright brothers, and they were exemplars of what I call fail successfully. And so the case study that I did was them really coming to kind of a stopping struggle point with development of the first self-propelled airplane, but they developed an air tunnel, essentially, where they could do experiments really fast and learn without having to actually take out their glider, their physical flyer. And that's when they kind of transitioned from experimenters to real inventors and scientists. And so anyway, it was sort of fail faster, fail cheaply. And failure for a lot of the early airplane entrepreneurs also meant sometimes failure through death, right?
Right.
What goes up will come down.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I don't think you have anything quite that perilous, but how do you think about failure in the product development process? You mentioned going from like 20 parts when you left the farm to today, a lot more parts. And so you've got to get from envisioning a part to the perfection that you spoke about earlier.
Right. The failure part is getting better. You know, when I was, and as the business grows, we're more cautious on what we put out. What tests does it go through first? You know, how easy it is installed? How does it help the farmer save time installing? All that stuff is thought about more now than it was at the farm. You know, because it was you had 3 or 4 guys thinking. You know, now we have quality, we have engineers, we have, you know, all these people that all have different ideas. You know, hey, what if we done this? What if we did that? What if we did it this way?
And they've probably developed processes for how the whole thing should work too, I would imagine.
Yep. So that has changed a lot. So the failures, I don't like failures.
Nobody does.
No. And I'm kind of to the point where we have to have this right before it goes out. And yeah, you're going to have some that just wasn't right, you know, but that is to be kept at a minimum. I mean, it's a lot of processes now.
Yep. Quality
where
control.
There was before. I've
testing.
been through failures. You know, all my life I've been fixing stuff and I'll fix it and that didn't work. You know, why you just try it again until you do get it right. So learned a lot from failures, how to try not to fail again, you know, so to speak. And that's why we have all these people in place, is to make sure that we have the best product that goes out there. Installation is easier. I mean, so me being a farmer, I know what farmers want. I know what I wanted, and I don't think I'm any different than any other farmer. I want something that's reasonably priced, gonna last longer, easy for me to install, you know. So, you know, and I just think I know what a farmer's what he's gonna buy and what he's not gonna buy. Because I've been there, I've done it for, you know, many years.
So sort of values, Mike, of high quality, ease of use, good price. As you've scaled from 3, 4, 5 people to 50, how have you tried to instill those values in kind of the culture and the employees that you've brought on board?
How do we try and include all the employees in team meetings. We'll have a Monday morning meeting, all the employees, we'll have a 15-minute meeting out in the shop before we go to work. We have a lot of team meetings. We have several, so like on the new facility we're doing now, I try and involve the employees as much as possible. So let's say, for example, the new shipping area we're building, we will bring in the employees from the shipping area on the new layout, and we'll say, guys, what would you like to see? It's not what I want to see. It doesn't matter to me. It's what do you guys want? What makes it easier for you? Where would you like the layout? Where would you like this? We get them involved. Mm-hmm. And I think if you get the employees involved, they take more pride, because they
take some ownership
of it. Yeah, because it's theirs.
Yeah. And
we do that with basically everything. Mm-hmm. We will talk to employees, if there's anything we can do to help them out, make it easier, let us know. Mm-hmm. So we don't just throw an employee out there and say, this is what you've got to work with, make it work. It's not that way around here.
Yeah.
So
for your Monday morning all hands meeting, is there any set template for what happens, or provide us kind of an example of what it's like to be at that meeting?
We'll go through what we got going for the week, what to expect. If there's any visitors going to be coming through, because we do a lot of touring. Groups will line up some tours and we'll bring them through, and we'll say, okay guys, on Wednesday we're gonna have a tour come through here at 1:00. I'd like to see all you guys wearing your Ihle logo and want stuff looking nice in your area, because we pride on a clean shop.
Yeah.
So we go through that, whatever's going on. Tell them what we're feeding them for lunch on Mondays. One other perk we give them. But we tell them what's for lunch. We'll go over what the sales guys have been doing, what to expect, because they like to hear, we're building all this product. Is it selling? Mm-hmm. We don't hear nothing. We'd like to hear from the sales. So we let the sales guys talk for 2-3 minutes and explain where they're going and where they've been traveling and what they've been hearing. And, if they've been hearing, all these Ihle parts are working great, we love them, they install great. They'll tell the employees that. Mm-hmm. And that's a morale boost for the employees.
Well, yeah, connecting your manufacturing folks on the inside to the customers on the outside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they like to hear that we're building augers, and there was a comment brought up at the one of the meetings that, man, this dealership your augers, they just love them. They look like perfection. And, the 4 guys that build augers, they just kind of perked up and
gives them a chance to take some pride in what they do. Yeah, we're building a good product that's making a positive difference.
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
Well, Mike, the case studies I've done and kind of this whole framework for what I call the entrepreneur's ethic is about how entrepreneurial people make decisions. So I thought I'd ask you, just to kind of close up our conversation, about some of those decisions. First, what's an example of a practical decision that you've made that in hindsight ended up being really important? So when you decided, for example, to purchase this building that had been sitting empty for some time, I think, but close to where you're at.
Yep.
Take us into what your thought process was.
That was a very
in
hard
making that commitment, because that's a big step.
Very, very, very hard decision to make. We were at the farm. We were doing really well, but we couldn't keep up. We were out of room.
No space. Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what do we do? Do we take this giant leap and try and buy this place and essentially, do the plunge, or do we stay at the farm shop, service the people we can service, and just let it go at that, you know. And I couldn't make up my mind. I knew we were doing good where we were at, but I knew moving down here was going to be a whole new game. I mean, just the money. I mean, you're talking about diving into something huge.
I mean, you and your brother farmed a lot, and it doesn't take a farm of much size to involve a lot of money.
Right.
And you mentioned $1 million combines. I mean,
Right.
that's just one
Yep.
thing. The
Yep.
value of land and
Yep.
the value of inputs. But did you view this as sort of taking financial risk to
I
a
did.
different level?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what, you know, it wasn't, yeah, the money thing is, you know, you farm and you're borrowing millions of dollars, you know, but I've been doing that for, you know, 38 years.
So you were comfortable with that
Yeah.
process.
I knew I was going to get it back. I've been doing it forever. I knew that one way or the other, it was going to work, you know, because we've been through droughts. We've been through everything, you
Floods.
know. So, yep. So it's like this here, okay, is it going to work? Yeah, my wife said, I said, I don't know what to do. She goes, you know, if you don't do it, you're gonna look back and you're gonna say, why didn't I try? So that's
So is that her
Yep.
knowing you?
Yep. So that's what did it. Those words.
Well, that sounds like she was really supportive. Do you think you could have done it if she hadn't been supportive that way?
Probably not. No. Because she would have told me, you know, don't do it or do it. So, you know, having her support, that was pretty much what I needed.
And so as part of that, if I understand it right, you had to take on a financial partner.
Yep.
So up to that point, a partner with your brother, who of course you were partners with, along with your dad
Yep.
going back
Yep.
as part of the farm. So you weren't new to partnerships.
Right.
But that was a pretty big decision too, wasn't
Yeah.
it? A different kind of partnership?
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Tell us how you thought about that.
Once again, it was, I mean, so the partnership that that we evolved into is no stranger. I've farmed for him since the 80s. So,
Okay. So somebody you have a long-standing
yeah.
relationship with.
Yeah.
That helps.
So that didn't bother me at all. I don't think that had come into play really. It was just the big step of because we knew what we were producing there, and we knew what we had, you know, because we bought this building site with on 80 acres, and we bought the whole thing, and we had to do a lot because this was an old Pioneer research facility that they raised cattle on, and they did testing and stuff. So there was no, I mean, that 400 feet of shop out there was cattle waters and cattle bunks.
It's a barn, not a manufacturing
Yep.
facility.
So there was a lot of money spent on that part. So we knew what we had to spend to even get started. So that's, you know, that's what kind of, I guess, worried me a little bit is like, I know what we're building now, but, you know, I'm going to have to 4 times this or 5 times this or 10 times this to do this. So that's what was, you know, is there enough business out there to do it? You know, how do we make it work? You know, but so far, yeah, yeah,
Well, you've got a big addition to the building.
yeah. We added on 80,000 square, so it's getting finished up. I think we're actually going to be in it next Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
So it won't be completely done, but they're going to let us occupy it on a temp basis so we can at least start shipping out of there. So yeah, that's going to be nice. So looking forward to that.
Well, Mike, I've visited with you here before, and well, first, just congratulations on
Thanks.
on the expansion and just building the team, and it's so cool. And part of what's neat, I've been around for a long time, and we're sitting here in central Iowa, and kind of the core of what built a lot of our economy here in our communities was agriculture and manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
And both of those things got really hit hard when I graduated from high school back in the 1980s, which I know is a long time ago, but to me it doesn't seem that long ago. Agriculture went through tough times, is recovered. Commodity prices go up and down, but we have talent that wants to come into the industry, which is cool. And now I have met lots of other entrepreneurs like you that are beginning to build what appear to be really great manufacturing businesses. How do you think about that? I mean, the conventional wisdom had been we have to offshore for cheaper labor, but you spoke about earlier, for example, you have robots.
Yeah. Labor is not cheap. So, I mean, I can see why prices are high, everywhere. Labor is not cheap. So it's a big factor that goes into it. You just try and find ways around it, because, we're sitting out here in the middle of a cornfield, and so far it hasn't been, but you're wondering, how can I get people to come out in the middle of a cornfield to work? We're not in a big city, we're not in a big town. You can't drive down to Applebee's and have lunch. You bring your lunch or go to Casey's. So it's like, how do you do that? How do you get people to come here and work? Like I told you, we feed all the employees every Monday.
Okay.
Every Monday they get a lunch. It could be barbecue, could be.
So you get it catered in.
Yep. So that's kind of a perk for them, and they love that. But yeah, it's labor is you got to find ways to because labor is labor. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, it's expensive, but you just got to find ways to cut somewhere else. If
you have to pay a lot, then that labor has to be highly productive. So yeah, they have to use robots, machines, automation.
Yep, a lot of sophisticated part machines out here. You got the robots, you got the all the CNC machines with the rollers and all the bender CNCs, and now we just installed a brand new automated laser. So now we have a laser running. So a lot of, and the guys have been great that take on the responsibility to learn how to run these things, because it's something you don't have it delivered and learn how to run it. I mean, it takes a lot of dedication from the operator guys to learn, go to training on how to run these machines, so it's
a long ways from that stick welder you started using when you were 10 years old to the equipment you have today.
Yeah, no more stick welders here. So, but yeah, it's come a long ways, So.
Well, Mike, thanks for taking the time to be with us. Again, congratulations on the growth of your business.
Thank you.
And we look forward to watching further growth.
Thank you.